We're live.
Good evening. We will be conducting this evening's meeting virtually via Zoom as well as in person in council chambers. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting tonight on Wave Channel 18 and online through the city's YouTube channel. If you would like to participate in live public comment via Zoom, please refer to the agenda for instructions. Pastor Mike Braderick from Lincoln Community Church will be giving the invocation this evening, and Mayor Andriotta will begin the meeting shortly after the invocation. So, Pastor, if you'd like to come up to the podium and begin the invocation, you can do that at any time now. Thank you.
Well, it's good to be here with all of you, and it's been a while. Let's have just a moment and let me pray for you. Father in heaven, we come tonight and we just thank you for the privilege in this country of being able to gather like this. Thank you that we can gather together and invoke your name and ask you for the guidance and the oversight tonight. Be with each person on this council tonight. Be with each person who has something to share. Be with those who are at home watching on Zoom. And may our words honor you. May our words honor the city that we represent here. And we now just place this meeting in your hands. Thank you again for the privilege in this great land of America that we can have meetings like this. Amen.
Pastor Mike, thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. Right. Here's will give us 1 minute. Okay, sorry for the delay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the August 9th, 2022 regular meeting, City of Lincoln City Council, Redevelopment Successor Agency, and Public Financing Authority. I call this meeting to order. It is 6:01. Okay. Gwen is on Zoom, so if you're able to, can you give us a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Joyner.
Here.
Councilmember Carlskent.
Here.
Councilmember Lauritsen.
Here.
Councilmember Silhai.
Here.
And Mayor Andriotta.
I am here. Thank you. Item number 3, report from closed session. Ms. Molikoff.
Thank you, Mayor. So the city council met in closed session. Staff was given direction. There is no reportable action, and I understand council will be reconvening to discuss closed session items at the conclusion of this general meeting.
Okay, thank you. Item number 4, Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Rodriguez, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, justice for all. Thank you, sir. Item number 5, agenda modifications. Do we have any tonight? Okay, great. Item number 6, presentations. We have one presentation this evening. Our Chief Innovation and Technology Officer, Jennifer Brown, will give us a presentation on SB2 grant project for GIS overview. Hi.
Good evening. Ooh. It's not going to be me actually giving the presentation. It's going to be Trevor Stewart, who's consultant working for Coastal Information Systems. And he took this project that was a grant project and from beginning to end, and he did a really great job, and he's going to show you what it's all about.
Great, thank you.
Hi, can you all hear me?
We can, thank you.
Fantastic. Just going to share my screen really quick. All right, can you all see the presentation?
We can, thank you.
Okay, great. All right, thank you, Jennifer, for the introduction. Hello, council members, City of Lincoln staff, and members of the public. As Jennifer said, I am Trevor Stewart. I am the owner of Coastal Information Systems, and I specialize in geographic information systems. When I started preparing for this talk, it reminded me of the technological expectations a lot of people have for organizations and the reality of what it takes to meet those expectations. Obviously, this graphic is an exaggeration, but the ability to access information all over the world on our phones at any time, at any place has become the standard. When an organization doesn't have a platform that provides quick access to information, it can be frustrating to the general public and the organization staff. In this presentation, I'm going to present the goals of the SB2 project, what was accomplished, and future enhancements. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to interrupt me. There will also be time for questions at the end.
Great, thank you.
Senate Bill 2, also known as the Building Homes and Jobs Act, was passed in 2017 and is a revenue source to provide funding to cities and counties to aid with accelerating housing production, streamlining development approval, and facilitating housing affordability. City of Lincoln planning staff applied for the SB2 grant in late 2019 with the goal of accelerating housing development in the city by creating an interface between the city's general development plans and zoning code through geographic information systems. So how is this accomplished? My goal was to provide a public-facing web mapping application where the end user could click on a parcel and display in a pop-up that parcel's zoning, general plan land use, overlay zones, and access any relevant documents. Additionally, the city wanted to create a story map to explain the lengthy processes involved in planning new residential, commercial, and industrial development. There were 4 central tasks required to meet the city's objective: develop a GIS database and related GIS data, create a document library, design a public-facing web mapping application, and construct a public-facing story map. The following provides an insight into the procedures needed to accomplish the 4 tasks. When I first began this project, my goal was to procure a document for every parcel in the city that described that parcel's zoning. Completing the inventory and procuring documents took a lot of time, but was necessary to ensure the integrity of the platform. One of the major challenges we faced was determining a way to display approved zoning and land use for parcels that were located within the city's incorporated boundary that have more than one zoning district. There are multiple examples of this within the annexed portions of Village 1 and Village 7 specific plan areas, where there are parcels that have been zoned to multiple districts based on how the built-out specific plan area will be in the future. However, no official document subdividing the land has been recorded with the assessor's office. An added challenge to this was that at the time, the city would only receive new parcel data from the county about every 6 months. In this scenario, a small lot or large lot final map may have been recorded with the assessor's office, but it had not been subdivided by the assessor's GIS team. Sometimes it might take over 6 months before those changes showed up in the city's parcel data. The solution was for the City of Lincoln to maintain its own parcel data. This presented 2 distinct opportunities. Parcels could be subdivided based on their approved zoning, and this would improve the GIS division's turnaround time to push out new address data to various city web mapping applications once final maps and addresses had been approved by council. This helps many divisions within the city. To connect city maintained parcels to zoning documents, a document library was created in a cloud environment. This solution provides city staff and the public access to documents anywhere they have an internet connection. Each parcel within the incorporated city boundary has been linked to a zoning document. Prior to publishing the web mapping application, an extensive QC process was completed with the help of planning staff. Once planning staff was satisfied that the information being displayed was correct, the static general plan land use and zoning maps were updated. Lastly, data was published to the internet as hosted feature services, and the zoning and land use web mapping application was designed. Additionally, a story map describing the planning processes was created with the help of planning staff. Here's an example of where the city was prior to this project. Before this project, if someone inquired about the zoning and land use of a parcel or wanted a copy of an adopted plan, they would call or email the city's planning division to request information. Depending on the parcel, city staff would sometimes be required to complete extensive research to ensure accurate information was provided to the requester. The image on the left below displays a portion of a printed map that planning staff kept around the office to aid with keeping track of zoning information. The image on the right is of the web mapping application, and that has been developed, now provides anyone access to zoning and land use documents. This has been beneficial to both city staff and the public. And I am going to demo the application now. Also, a link to the city zoning and this new web app, the zoning and land use web mapping application, can be found on the planning and GIS landing pages of the city's website. So upon entering the web map, a splash screen notifies the user that the zoning is based on the city's unofficial parcel data and should not be used as the official parcel data set, since parcels have been split at zoning districts. Once the splash screen has been acknowledged, the city boundary, sphere of influence, and parcels are symbolized based on their zone, and parcels symbolized based on their zoning are displayed. So the end user has two options to search for a specific parcel. They can enter the address or APN in the search bar here, or zoom into an area of interest and click or select a parcel. So I am going to, can you all see the web mapping application?
Yes.
Okay, great. I am going to just enter an address here, and hopefully it doesn't take too long since I'm sharing the screen. So when you enter an address, there's an auto-populate feature in the address bar. So if we have the address, it'll show up. Likewise, the user could also enter the APN if they know it. So I'm just going to enter the APN for that parcel. And the same thing would happen. It would zoom to this parcel and a pop-up would display. Likewise, you could just click on it and the pop-up will display. So once the pop-up displays, zoning, land use, the adopted plan name, if applicable, any overlay zones such as the airport land use compatibility plan zones, and links to any relevant documents will display. So for this example, the address and APN both display. The general plan land use is industrial plan development. The zoning is limited use light industrial. It has one overlay zone, the airport land use compatibility plan zone C2. There is no specific plan. However, there is a general development plan. It is the Lincoln Air Center GDP. And there's a link to that document here that you can click on. And then that document will either display in a browser or display in whatever PDF viewer you have. So additionally, there are some other layers that you can view. I'm just going to zoom out really quick to make it a little bit easier to see. In the layer list here, we have the National Hydrology Data Set, rivers and streams, water bodies, have FEMA flood zones, the downtown urban design plan boundaries. These are also clickable, so you can click on them. It'll tell you which zone you're in, and then also provide you a link to the document. Airport land use compatibility zones. This is the most recent updated version that was just approved by council a few weeks ago. The airport land use compatibility plan wildlife critical zone. Unannexed village boundaries. special use district boundaries, specific plan boundaries. You can zoom into these. These are clickable too. So if you click on it, a pop-up comes up and there's a link to the document. General development plan boundaries. There are a few more of these. Same thing though, you can click on them, pop-up will come up, and then there will be a link to that general development plan. And then unannexed village land use based on the approved adopted plans. So there is a portion of Village 1 that's unannexed, Sub B, a portion of Village 7, and all of Village 5. Additionally, there is a place where you can change your base map. So if you wanted to see aerial imagery, you can change it to that here. And then we can either turn this layer off for the zoning, or we can change the transparency of it. And then anytime the zoning, so the zoning legend always displays here. However, anytime something is a layer is clicked on, its legend will display in the legend area here. So that pretty much wraps up the web map. There's a lot of information here. I would suggest opening it and just playing around with it and seeing what you can find.
All right, Trevor, thank you so much. That is
Sure.
amazing. So I was getting onto the Lincoln ca.gov website because I wanted to make sure I knew how to find that. So I don't know if I missed it ahead of time. So when you go to the city website, do you go to development? What is the tab that you're hitting first to find what you're doing right now?
Sure. So the
Business.
easiest way for me to get there is to go to on the city's webpage at the top and the right where it says Our Government. I
Okay,
usually click on that and go to A through Z city services and departments.
okay,
And then it's community development.
Okay.
And then planning. And then you'll see the link to it there on that page.
planning, okay. Thank
And
you.
then additionally on this page, we have updated the most recent updates of the zoning map and the general plan land use and circulation diagram are on these clickable links directly above the zoning, interactive zoning map
Yep, I see
link.
it right here. Thank you. That's usually the question that people have. How do I find it? And so I was following along, trying to make sure I had the right steps. Thank you. That's really, really impressive.
Thank
Very
you.
impressive. Yes, thank you so much. Questions, comments? Which way do you want to start?
Sure, I'd be happy to. First of all, it's a great tool.
Yeah. that's awesome.
One that I'm going to route an awful lot of folks to as they call all of us, I think, to ask us what's going on in a particular area. How far along is that? Is that still happening? So great tool. I think what I would say is if I were a member of the public, all of those clicks to find it might be a little difficult at first. If there's a way that we can.
Sorry, there is a quicker way. If you're on our homepage and you go to business and development,
Okay.
and then you hit planning,
That's where I start.
Okay.
Yep.
it's right there on, like, go down just a little bit, maybe.
There's more than one way.
Well, that just eliminated 2 or 3 clicks, so.
Yes.
that worked.
Yeah. Well, I actually, you just taught me something. So
There you go.
So then I do have just purely happenstantial, as we were going through those clicks, Sean, this caught my eye. Capital engineering counter currently closed due to COVID-19 safety measures. I saw that earlier today as well during the day. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so Travis probably addressed that. It is closed, but it's open to developers that come in because Capital generally they don't really have as much like counter traffic there. Most of the engineering needs you have are development engineering, which is the second floor. So I don't know if you want to speak to that, Travis, but generally they just schedule direct meetings with their contractors.
Yeah, we certainly still host a lot of meetings up on the third floor. The counter was predominantly open for encroachment permits and those types of applications, which have been converted to online. So we receive very few public communications or public interest. And it's just not worth having so it's not a COVID closure. It's really a unneeded and unmanned area.
Maybe we rephrase
So why do we have
that.
the
We will,
website?
yeah. So the main reason I asked that is I was in a meeting yesterday with a media group who immediately jumped on all the city's social media and found that we were somewhat less than up to date on a lot of things. And so I just wanted to check to make sure that that was up to date as well. As far as the map goes, fantastic, long overdue, much appreciated. And I'll be
Thanks.
playing with it for hours on end, no doubt.
That's great.
I have a process question.
Sure.
Your QC process. Understand the need for entering data before we get it back from the county. What is the process? Does the county push that data back to us? And if we do, does that institute a verification process? So we don't get down the road shifted off a little bit here, there, and wherever.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the short answer is yes. Actually, we just did this last week. So the county, in the past, the county would provide their new parcel data to the city on a flash drive. But now, and that would be hand delivered at City Hall. Now there is I guess for better purposes, there's a place where I guess the city has access to it via credentials provided by Placer County, where they can go in, GIS staff can go in and download this data, their data set anytime. However, they don't update that. It's not kept up to date, weekly. It's probably every 3 months, I would guess, something like that. So one thing that the city is working on right now is to write a script that will notify GIS staff via email every time the Placer County updates their data set. So without getting too much into the weeds on the technical stuff, basically the city staff will download that data, and then there's a pretty lengthy process, takes a couple hours, where you compare the data sets via spatially and by APN and see what changes have been made. And then if anything has changed, like parcels have been merged or something like that, then city staff would then go through and make sure their parcels are up to date. That also helps with owner information and there's a lot of fields. There's a lot of attributes that come with that data set. So all of that gets updated at the same time.
Okay, that answers the question. And that is then the standard procedure
Yeah.
will be done constantly.
Yes, we can provide the data a lot quicker to internal staff, which it's used, for public safety, for public works. And so maintaining our own data set is pretty much a
No, I
necessity.
agree with that.
Yeah.
You are the source of the data anyway.
Mhm.
What I was worried about is for the rest of the world, there are two sources, either Lincoln or the county, and they can get out of sync.
No, we don't we don't provide Lincoln data to the rest of the world. So the Placer County
I-
data. So that would just
I
be,
thought you just did.
no, not, well, we provide it as a schematic.
Okay,
Yeah.
but I don't care what the format of the database is. I get a picture, and if I look at that same picture on the county, which I do,
Mhm.
if they're out of sync, and they can be, I just want to know that as soon as possible, they're going to be in sync.
Right.
And you answered that.
Yes.
But we do provide data to the world at the user level. And the county provides data to the world at the user level.
Right.
It's a public website.
Mhm.
Anyway, I think it's great. I'd love to see I assume we'll be adding more layers as time goes on also.
Yeah. There's a whole other public education piece to SB2, which is what the story map is. And I know it's a, pretty lengthy presentation, but if he could just maybe go through the story map really quick, just to see how they educate the public. Otherwise, you can look at it on your own time. It's up to you guys.
Yeah, that would be great. Trevor, if you want to do that, that'd be great.
Okay, yeah, I will keep going. I'll try and make it quick. I know you all have other business to do. So, what is a story map? A story map, they are web pages that incorporate interactive content like web maps into a narrative format. They provide a platform to interactively engage an audience. So the planning processes story map provides a narrative style explanation of the processes and procedures involved in residential, commercial, and industrial development. And just kind of FYI, it's meant to be high level, and it doesn't get into every unique scenario that could happen in planning new development. So I will go ahead and display it. Can you all see the video that's displaying?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So this is the story map. It's titled "The Planning Processes Behind New Development." So there's an overview page that has a table of contents, and you can go directly to any of these, or you can just scroll down and go through the story map, how it plays out. This page shows the 1988 city boundary in dark blue, the current city boundary, and then the sphere of influence. So it just kind of talks about how the city's growing, how it has grown, how much it's grown, and how the city would like citizens to be informed and understand the processes involved in getting to where we're at today. So the first slide speaks to the general plan and what it's for. This land use and circulation diagram is the most recent with the new ALUCP boundaries. There's a link to the general plan here. And then we go into a diagram that kind of gives two different scenarios. One is planning for development that is within the sphere of influence boundary, and then also development that is within the incorporated boundary, but has a zoning of planned development district. On this slide, I get into specific plans, what they are, what they're used for. There's a map that displays all of the city specific plan areas. You can click on this. It's interactive. It'll give you a link to the specific plan here. The next slide, we get into environmental review. what CEQA is, just very high level what CEQA is. And there's a link to the CEQA landing page on the Governor's Office of Planning and Research website here. Then the story map speaks about annexation and the Placer County Local Agency Formation Commission processes. And then there's a link to their website here if anyone wants to learn more information about those processes. Then it gets into general development plans. This is similar to the specific plan interactive map where you can click on this, pop-up will come up, and then you can view that general development plan. And it gets into a little bit of the differences between a specific plan and a general development plan. Not to be confused with a specific plan, the next page talks about specific development plans, the design review process, the design review board, what is required in a specific development plan per this City of Lincoln Municipal Code. And then it also talks about public hearings and when the public can give their input. There are also links to the municipal code here, the section on specific development plans, and the agenda and minutes. The next page talks about tentative subdivision maps and the California Subdivision Map Act. And then again, all the required items per the City of Lincoln Municipal Code. Doesn't go over everything because that's a long list. So there is a link to that portion of the municipal code here. So then the story map talks about construction, which is not necessarily part of the planning process. However, just to be transparent, it kind of breaks it down into public improvements and building construction. So we talk about improvement plans, what they are, and then what public improvements are and how when they begin, when construction begins on those. And then final maps and parcel maps, what they are, their approval process, and then when commencement of buildings can begin. So then lastly, I have a few slides where we put all of this together. So eventually we end up to the Education Foundation subdivision, but it begins with the 12 Bridges specific plan area. It gives a little bit of information about that, a link to the specific plan. The next map shows the 12 Bridges general development plan area. And it talks about that general development plan. The next map displays the zoning of the 12 Bridges general development plan. And there's a link to the general development plan here. The next slide shows the approved, any subdivision that has an approved final map is displayed here. It's only residential though. I did not display commercial or public parcel maps like the library or the school here. But highlighted in green is the Education Foundation subdivision. So the next slide talks about the specific development plan process for Education Foundation and the design review. And this is an excerpt of that application that was sent to planning staff. This page speaks to the tentative subdivision map approval process for Education Foundation. This page talks about when improvement plans were approved and when construction of the public improvements commenced. And then finally, the Education Foundation final map was approved and commencement of construction of buildings began. And there's just a conclusion here, and there's another link to the agendas and minutes and the Community Development Department landing pages.
Thank you. Just a quick question, and not to spend a lot of time on it. Back several slides when you're going through all the different stages, you had specific plan description first and then the general development. Wouldn't the general development plan go first and then specific plan?
So the way I was taught about this from planning staff and various planning staff is that the general development plan, although not implied in the name, is more specific than the specific plan, which is why it comes after. However,
That makes sense.
not every, per the municipal code for plan development, doesn't necessarily for parcels that are within this incorporated city boundary, specific plans aren't required, but some sort of adopted plan is required, which generally is. So a good example of that would be Independence at Lincoln has a general development plan, however, does not have a specific plan.
Gotcha. It's totally fine. I just, learning all this development lingo over the last 4 years, making sure it's all straight in my head. Thank you. So we'll continue where we left off, and then if we come back, if you guys have more comments. Councilmember Lauritsen, did you have any questions or comments about the presentation? Oh, good.
I don't have any questions, just this represents a whole lot of work, and I just wanted to thank you for that because I think that it's going to be really useful. It's needed, it was necessary, and thank you for bringing us into the 21st century.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So just really quickly, what's next? GIS staff will continue to update GIS data related to the SB2 grant as needed and continue to develop interdepartmental workflows to make that process more efficient. One of the next things that we're going to do with the parcels is classify their actual land use. So if a parcel is zoned industrial, but it's vacant, we want to know this for economic development purposes, but additionally, it helps with required reporting to various state agencies. It also cuts costs on address mailers. So this, additionally, this data will eventually be integrated with third-party applications like Acela. And I just want to, before I finish, I want to thank city staff that helped make this project possible. And if I left your name out, I apologize. And yeah, if anyone has any other questions.
Great, thank you so much. Did you guys have a follow-up on this side or?
I have a comment on the training aspect of it. I think it is incumbent upon the 5 of us to be familiar enough with it to point our residents to the right part of it to answer their questions.
Well, that's why I asked, when you get on the website, what's the right path to get to it quickly? Because sometimes people are searching around, and so I agree. That's great. Thank you. Okay, let's go out to the public comment for this. Gwen, is there anybody on Zoom who would like to make a comment on this presentation?
We have a number of folks, but nobody's raised their hand, Mayor.
Okay, anybody in the council chambers wishes to make a comment on this? No? Okay, well, thank you, all of you very much. That is amazing. And as Alyssa said, a lot of work, and we really appreciate it. I look forward to putting that to use. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to present.
Oh, we appreciate it. Okay, item number 7, public comment on non-agenda items. And this is your opportunity to speak to the council on an item that is not on our agenda. And I don't have any cards today, but Gwen, is there anybody on Zoom that has a comment to make?
No hands are raised.
Okay. Anybody in the council chambers? Oh, seeing none. Okay, we'll move along. Item 8, consent agenda. All matters on the consent agenda are considered routine business and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the city council or resident requests a specific item be removed from the consent agenda for separate action. Any items removed will be considered after the remainder of the consent agenda. So do any of my colleagues wish to remove an item tonight? Anybody from the public? Okay, seeing none, then I am ready to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda in full.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Yes, Councilmember Joyner,
Yes.
Councilmember Silhai,
Yes.
Councilmember Carl Skint,
Yes,
Councilmember Lauritsen,
Yes.
and Mayor Andriotta.
Yes. All right, thank you. All right, item number 9, public hearings. We have 2 tonight. 9A is the 12 Bridges Apartment. Number 1, conduct a public hearing, and number 2, adopt resolution 2022-186, finding that no further environmental review is required under CEQA. And 3, waive full reading and introduced by title only ordinance 1050B, amending the 12 Bridges General Development Plan and zoning regulations for 12 Bridges Plan Area A, and adopt resolution 2022-187, approving a specific development plan design review for the proposed 189-unit 12 Bridges Apartments project. And Mel, you're going to be giving us this presentation, obviously. You're standing there. Thank you. We are ready.
Good evening, City Council.
Good evening.
There you go. I have a brief presentation for tonight, short presentation summarizing the actions that have taken place, especially the Planning Commission's recommendation to your council. So just quick, a couple items here, just housekeeping items. Along with me here, we have support staff, Rainy Planning staff, Kevin Valenti, who worked with me on this project. We also have Matt Weir. He's online via Zoom with Kimberly Horn, who assisted with the review of the parking modification for the project. The applicant's representative, Matt Skelton, is also online, and the rest of Matt's colleagues are here in the chamber. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. So all the documents that are presented here were forwarded to the commission and was forwarded to your city council for consideration tonight. So this quick agenda summarizing what I'll be talking about tonight, again, just a brief overall overview of the project. We'll cover what the commission did on the 20th of July, summarize the details of the project, entitlements, and consistency determination, and what the commission recommended for your council to consider tonight. So on the 28th of July, the commission heard the project. Staff presented the staff report, the findings and conclusion before the commission, and a staff recommendation to recommend to your council approval of the project. Following presentation by staff, the commission deliberated and approved the project unanimously based on a 7-0 vote, adopting resolutions 2022-13 and 14. There was an added modified condition of approval number 9 involving future parking modification for the project subject to the Planning Commission for review. And we'll cover that some more in the next slides here. No public comments were received in advance of that PC meeting, or actually in advance of this meeting as well. No comments have been received. It's a lot of information here, but again, these are all information that's been forwarded to your commission, to your council. The proposed projects for 189-unit apartment complex on 8.41 acre site. As part of Village 27 within the 12 Bridges specific plan area. They're all market rate rental units. There will be 8 3-story apartment buildings. On-site amenities consist of pool, playgrounds, dog park. There'll be on-site or off-street parking, about 378 total, both garage and covered stalls, as well as non-covered stalls. The complex will be privately maintained and it will be gated by the groupie properties. The entitlements proposed here consist of a specific development plan or design review to ensure that the project meets the overall design as contemplated in the 12 Bridges specific plan. Also, what's requested before here is a revision to the adopted general development plan for the proposed modification to parking as required by the specific plan. And we'll go over that some more in detail. I think I have a pointer here. Oh, sweet. So this project is just an aerial photo of the project site. Orientation wise, you have Bella Breeze right here. You have Dresden Drive. Highway 65 is right here. Uses around the project consist of future single-family dwelling units over here, high-density residential. Also another high-density residential development over here. This is a City of Lincoln open space property. Kaiser is to the south and John Adams to the southeast. So kind of general orientation and what's around this proposed project.
Mel, really quickly, just for my own reference, is the hotel going right behind John Adams, if that's where the apartments are?
La
Which-
Quinta?
Yes,
I'm not sure. I think it's
it right-
outside. It's outside. over
right
here.
there?
I'm not, I'm not sure about the project. It's
Down
down
more?
further, yeah,
That's-
it's further away.
It's off the map, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no problem. Zooming in further into the site plan, the point of access to the site is off of Dresden Drive via the kind of circular driveway there, and that heads into the parking lot and overall circulation around into the complex. Yeah, the brown areas are the buildings of the complex buildings. There's total 8 of them. And there's the ninth one is basically the clubhouse, and where there's a pool behind it, there's some recreation area. And dog park is somewhere, I believe, is on the south side, but I don't recall the specific location, but and the secondary access to the site is off of Bella Breeze, and that one's emergency access only. Some illustrations.
Mel,
for the
could I
pro-
ask you to go back one? Just pure curiosity for me. Could you go back one? No, just to where you were with the,
Yeah. Oh. Oh, wait a second. I lost it.
it looks like it's 2.
This one.
The question almost isn't worth it, but I'm curious. In the green area in the center there, it looks terraced, like a small amphitheater. Is that just a drainage setup there? What is that?
That's what was my thought initially. Yeah, that kind of amphitheater design, but we can ask the applicant that, because on one of the views that I'll be showing here, it remains flat, but maybe it could be a different view from what I was seeing, but we can cover that in a few slides, but we can also get more that question answered by the applicant. Moving on, bird's eye view shot of the project over here. Again, Dresden Drive's over here. Kaiser is right there. Undeveloped but future development over here, high density residential, as well as across the street off of Bella Breeze. And this is, of course, a kind of cross section of the buildings with the Paseo walkways to the development. This is the main entrance off of Dresden Drive with featuring the clock tower right there. And this is the back of the pool behind the clubhouse. So I think the Commissioner, City Council Joyner, you're referring to somewhere back here, I believe, is the terraced area. So, but we can ask more further questions about that with the applicant. Some more illustrations showing the elevations of the project. The buildings will be built out of stucco, 3-story high, as I mentioned earlier. That's a frontal view, and of course, the rear view is right here, and the garages, the ones that would have access to the garages, are located below the units. more closer view of the clock tower at the entrance. And here's some profile shots of the carport that's serving the site as well as the optional parking for the site.
Just out of curiosity, because that's what it looks like. Are those covers solar or are they just regular cover?
Good question. I asked that question. I don't remember the answer from the applicant. It'd be good to have solar as another source of power, but we can ask the applicant that question as well. So during staff's review, we reviewed it for consistency with the general plan. Being part of the 12 Bridges specific plan, of course, these units are accommodated, included in the overall general plan accounting for units and density. As part of the general plan, as part of the 12 Bridges specific plan, the project was reviewed by the design review for consistency with the designs, colors, style, theme. And on May 25th of this year, and then they recommended approval of the project to the commission, of course, forwarding to your city council's consideration as well tonight. Being part of the 12 Bridges specific plan, which has a certified environmental impact report, and being residential, it qualifies for a statutory exemption under 151A2, in which that if a project is residential and it meets the specific plan, it locks in that no further environmental review will be required of the project. As usual, conditions of approval are applied. There are 77 of them, that including mitigation measures, to ensure that the project is done correctly and on a timely manner. And so that's all in your documentations for consideration tonight as well. We have some follow-up slides later on if you have more questions about parking, but here's what the commission forwarded to your city council, and it's detailed again in the staff report. For the council to adopt a resolution finding that no further environmental review is required per section 151A2 of CEQA. Adopt an ordinance approving an amendment to the general development plan for 12 Bridges specific plan, and adopt a resolution approving the specific development plan design review for the proposed 12 Bridges Apartments project. As I mentioned earlier, I have colleagues who can assist me in terms of questions, in terms of parking. I have some slides I can show as well to help answer those questions you may have. And the applicants are here as well to answer some of your questions that I wasn't able to answer, and any more that you may have.
Okay, thank you, Mel. Appreciate it. Okay, we'll start over here this time. Councilmember Lortson, do you have any questions?
Yeah, my questions concern parking. I've talked to Matt this morning, and you reduced the amount of parking from two parking spaces per one-bedroom apartment to 1.5. You kept 2 for each for the 2-bedroom and the 3-bedroom, and then the guests, you have only one parking space per 10 units versus 1 per every 5. Do you think this is really adequate?
What we did is, I have a slide showing here. I'm not showing right now on the screen, so which summarizes what you just said. So this details the existing standard as well as proposed standard. What we did is the city staff hired Kimley Horn to essentially compare what's out there with regards to standard parking in other jurisdictions. And of course, ours is shown here. And there was an analysis of how we compare for this type of project, the density to other jurisdictions. And at the end of the day, it's a request by the applicant to do. We believe it's adequate, given that the nature of our current standard is a bit high compared to the other jurisdictions. I could ask a representative from Kimley Horn, either Matt Weir or Stephen Dillon, to help me out. But to answer your questions, we believe that from staff's point of view, it's adequate.
Okay, yeah, because it is a gated community. Is there any plan for like overflow parking?
At the moment, there isn't, because it's the way it's been requested to the GDP, that there's no request for overflow
So what
Um,
happens if someone had a party or something? Where would they park?
Good question. I mean, at the end of the day, the applicant as the manager of the apartment complex, they have to inform the residents to, that there's limited parking just for the residents, but it all depends on, of course, what the situation is in terms of gathering and whatnot, but we do have some spaces, but they're not according to the standards. That's why it's being modified as such. It's been analyzed accordingly, again, compared to the other jurisdiction, but if there is an event that happens, either the residents or the community manager will have to regulate that.
There wouldn't be any enough spaces then.
Well, for the resident,
Well, I think
Mel, is
that's-
there any on-street parking?
there's no,
There's no on-street parking, so you can't park in Villa Breeze, whatever, so.
no, I think there's no.
There's no overflow lot, near there where people can
No.
park. Okay, that's my
Okay,
question.
I apologize.
No, but perhaps if our person from Kimberly Horn is on the line, they could speak to that, because typically what they do is you set a ratio per unit, and some units will use one space and some will use more than that. And then there's an amount over that they typically will budget, for lack of a better term, for visitors as well. So, I mean, is that person on Zoom, Mel? Maybe they can speak to that
I can't
analysis.
recognize who's on the line at the moment.
Yeah,
but I
so
know-
if that person's speaking, let's say that there's a scenario to go off of Bill's question, what I think you're going at, like, let's say that the people in this apartment complex have a first birthday party for their kid. Where do their grandma, grandpa, cousins, aunts, uncles, and guests go? Are they going to fill Kaiser's spot? And now, do we have an issue where patients can't get spots to go to the doctor? Are they going to go to the school? And now is the school district mad at us? Like, do we have a plan for that? That's what your concern is, right? Yeah.
Overflow parking.
So if he could answer that question, that'd be comforting.
Yeah, there isn't any overflow parking proposed for the project.
But to Sean's point, I'm sure that they thought about that in their ratios.
Yeah, and again, I can bring on the applicant as well to provide a response to that and how they would deal with that, but there's no overflow parking. There are,
Anywhere near, I mean, there's no street parking,
no,
there's
there
no
is,
empty lot,
no, there is none.
because it's a gated community, so it's kind of limited.
It's limited.
Yeah, but I think the ratio is designed so that the overflow parking is within the site.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, I'm not sure who on the line, the applicants are here as well, who can provide that answer, but I think Dylan
Mel?
or,
Matt Weir has unmuted himself. He is available.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, Matt.
Thank you for the opportunity to chime in. I do want to clarify, and it was just mentioned that the parking ratios that are used in the city of Lincoln, as well as the 8 other agencies that were surveyed, those ratios do build in the flexibility that you're describing. So in addition to that, I also wanted to establish that the parking analysis that we completed was no more than surveying and documenting the region's parking requirements by agency. And if I could share my screen here, does somebody need to grant me that ability?
No, you should be able to share your screen.
Okay, here we go.
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So this is the graphical version of the table that has been circulated and you saw briefly earlier. And I'll just call your attention to the dashed blue line across the top at 2.0. And that is the proposed or requested total parking ratio for this project in Lincoln. And the blue bars are the ratio required by the respective agencies. So what you can see, what we found is that the project as proposed with a total ratio of 2.0 per unit is at or exceeds 6 of the 8 agencies that were surveyed. So that was a primary finding, that the project is not quote unquote under parking. Rather, if it happened to have been in one of the other agencies, we would have found that it was adequately parked. And then when you add to that the fact that the ratios are understood to allow for some of that flexibility that was just mentioned, a little bit of a give and take. Maybe one unit has more vehicles than the other. All of that is kind of baked into those ratios.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. Bill, does that answer your question or?
Yeah, I'm just worried about overflow parking, yeah. There's no place around there that,
I guess the question I have on that, Mel, is have we put the parking metric, are we changing it in the general plan? Is that going to be an amendment that you're going to put forth?
That's more of a long-term
Because this hasn't
effort.
come up, I mean, this has come up before.
Yeah.
Because-
Yeah, there will be a long-term effort as part of the long-range planning things to do. We made note of that as staff. Of course, this project would highlight that as well and could be used as an analysis for any future change to the ordinance. It is quite old, but and it could be
Yeah,
updated accordingly.
So let me jump
And
in.
just a little note on that, the state might be taking care of that for us. Whole lot of legislation on parking
Yeah.
per ratio per capita
Right.
coming up like this month.
So that's where I was just going to jump in. It's, especially in the urban areas, what we're seeing is a diminishment in the number of units required. I just did a SACOG study mission to Salt Lake City. Their requirement is now 0.5 per unit.
That said, we have different considerations here, which
That is true.
I don't think that we need to worry about this because that seems fair.
Right.
We don't have mass
I agree.
transit. We don't have, right, like we're not an urban core
Well,
center.
but
People
I
have
think we
cars here.
do need to have a consideration of having transit stop in front of a large
I was going to
complex
say
like
for this, we would want to make sure that we can have transportation for maybe stopping there, like if we're not going to expect it.
I'll bring it up with BCTVA. I think it's important.
My question, do you have more on that?
No, I have no more.
My question that your question made me think of is, we already have like a lot of traffic back up there and it makes people angry. Makes parents upset, it makes Kaiser upset, it makes businesses upset. It's a natural growing pain. I don't have a problem with the project. I think the project is great, so don't anyone get nervous. I think it's a necessary product for Lincoln that we don't have enough of. But that said, are we thinking about the impact to what that does to traffic out there, to support our businesses in advance, to make sure that school drop off is safe? Because it's going to add a lot more traffic.
Yeah, so the chief and I have spent a lot of time on this issue with John Adams, and they've been great. And a lot of the issues there are simply related to volume within a very short period of time, right? And the other problem that they have acknowledged, they've tried to deal with it, but struggled, is having parents show up like an hour or an hour and a half or 2 hours before the kids are even let out of school. So we've employed a number of different strategies. First off, this year is the first year that John Adams will actually stagger their releases, where I can't remember which is which. The older kids will, I guess they leave later and the younger ones will leave a little bit earlier. So it won't be all of the parents for all of the grades coming at one time. They also have looked at their internal circulation a little bit more to make sure that it's efficient. And they, at least from my perspective, with what they have to work with, it's a pretty good solution. In addition to that, Travis and his team are just finishing up a crosswalk project at the corner of basically where John Adams entrance is and Bella Breeze, right? Which we're hoping helps a little bit with, because there are kids in the neighborhood that might walk to that school that can't right now. So I don't know if Travis, you want to add anything to that or?
No, as you said, we just completed it. So it's going to be an activated crosswalk on the west side of their northern driveway. So one of the push button flashing. We also rearranged. Right now, a lot of the backup that's happening is traffic trying to come out of the northern John Adams and turning left across everyone trying to get into there. So we've killed the left turn lane. We work with John Adams, killed the left turn lane on site, implementing a number of modifications to that northern driveway.
And my request would just be, as this project comes online and people move in, realizing that the same times that school drop off and kids are riding their bikes and they don't pay attention and are going to school, it's going to be the same time that everyone in those apartments is leaving for work. And just making sure we're paying attention to transitions and making it a safe route to school.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that there's going to be some more growing pains there, but frankly, they would have happened.
Well, it's
regardless of
zoned higher
the
density. It's,
development.
yeah, I'm just
And there,
making,
there is the properties to the south of all of this. At some point when they develop, if you ever drive that, you can see a stubbed out roadway that will open up things a little bit more than just this two ways in and out.
and then my next just follow up is you said you work extensively with John Adams, just making sure that we're touching base with Kaiser also because they have a lot of frustrations. And so just making sure that, I mean, the reality is to Bill's point, if there's no overflow, if somebody does like 5 people have the same first birthday, I don't know the coincidence of that happening, but let's just say it happened, it's going to be their parking lot people are parking in. So just making sure we have open lines of communication.
Yep.
Any other questions, comments?
The comment
for the
is,
moment?
this project at 189 apartments, it adds no residences to the 12 Bridges plan. So, in theory, not in theory, but in practice, the 12 Bridges plan, traffic circulation plan called for this. So.
Okay, this is a public hearing, so I will open the public hearing. Are there anybody on Zoom that has something to say, Gwen?
Mayor, no hands are raised.
Okay, thank you. Anybody in the council chambers? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council. Any other questions?
You know, I think that the lack of public comment, both at the planning commission and here,
Yeah.
reflects the need for market rate
Mhm.
apartments in this city, and I'm very grateful this project
I
is
think
being
so
brought
too. I
forward.
was shocked that nobody had any comment. I was like, I was-
You know, I don't know what the rest of you received. There was some chatter, there were some questions.
Yeah,
Certainly received those and addressed them, and clearly those concerns have been addressed. So I'd be more than happy to offer
if we're
motions
ready.
if you like.
Yep.
Christine, should we do them all together or want to do them individually?
Generally, my preference in a public hearing is to
Individually.
do them individually.
Got it. All right. So then I will make a motion to adopt resolution 2022-188, adopting the proposed amendum to the certified 2010 Village 7 specific plan, EIR, for the Liberty, I'm on the wrong
You're on
one.
the wrong one. I was like, what are you reading there? buddy?
Yeah, that's why I'm tripping, sorry. It's Dr. Pepper.
And Phil's back there going,
Yeah.
woo, let's go.
No, sorry about that. Conduct a public hearing, we've done. Adopt resolution 2022-186.
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Joyner,
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen,
Yes.
Councilmember Carl Skint,
Yes,
Councilmember Silhai,
Yes.
and Mayor Andriotta.
Yes,
Motion to adopt ordinance 1050B.
second,
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Joyner,
Yes.
Councilmember Carl Skint,
yes,
Councilmember Lauritsen,
Yes.
Councilmember Silhai,
Yes.
and Mayor Andriotta.
yes,
And motion to adopt resolution 2022-187.
second,
Thank you. Councilmember Joyner,
Yes.
Councilmember Carl Skint,
yes,
Councilmember Lauritsen,
Yes.
Councilmember Silhai,
Yes.
and Mayor Andriotta.
yes. All right, congratulations. That'll be a nice project. That'll be good, be good. Thank you, Mel. You're staying, right? Okay, all right. Item 9B, Liberty at Lincoln Project Village 7. Conduct a public hearing and adopt resolution 2022-188. Adopt the proposed addendum to the certified 210 Village 7 Pacific EIR for the Liberty at Lincoln project, certifying that the changes will not result in any new significant information of substantial importance, new impacts, new mitigation measures, new or revised alternatives, or an increase in the severity of previously identified impacts that will require major revisions to the 2010 Village 7 specific plan EIR. And therefore, pursuant state CEQA guidelines, section 15162, the preparation of an additional supplement or subsequent EIR is not required. And 3, waive full reading and introduce by title only ordinance 1051B, approving the Village 7 General Development Plan amendment to reflect the amended development standards requested by the applicant. And 4, waive full reading and introduce by title only ordinance 1052B, approving the Village 7 Development Agreement Amendment between the City of Lincoln and Lincoln Land Holdings LLC Lewis Communities, and 5, adopt resolution 2022-189, approving the amended Village 7 Phase 1 vesting tentative subdivision map for the Liberty at Lincoln project.
And Madam Mayor, if I may, I'm going to recuse myself on this item. I don't think that technically I need to, but you are going to be dealing with a general development plan amendment, which lays over the entirety of the project, and my home is within about 400 feet of, I think, one singular lot in Village 7. So I'm going to recuse myself.
We'll just wait for him to step out and then you can start. All right, thanks, Mel. Go ahead.
Thank you, Councilman. Mel Pavilions, Planning Manager. Similarly, this item was heard by the Planning Commission back on July 20th as the previous project. And this is the Liberty at Lincoln project by Lewis Communities. Brief PowerPoint presentation shown before you. Again, another housekeeping. We have Kevin Valenti, also with Rainey Planning, who assisted me in this effort. So, and he's available here, as well as the applicant is in the chamber tonight. Just similar agenda. We'll go over the Plan Commission actions, with the details that was considered by the Plan Commission back on 20th of July. Details of the project entitlements and our analysis of the project, and then what's being recommended to your council tonight. The commission heard this project on the 20th. Staff presented the details of the project, which I'll go over more in depth. Conclusion and analysis, as well as staff recommendation to the commission. Following that analysis and discussion with the commission approved the project 7-0 unanimous vote, adopting resolutions 22-2015, 16, 17, and 18. Similarly, no public comments were received in advance of that Planning Commission meeting, as well as this meeting tonight. Again, the recommendation to your council is for approval. This brief summary, again, these are all detailed in the documentations provided to your council. An amendment to the approved Phase 1 vesting tentative map. The original map was approved back in 2016. This project would amend the map, modifying lot sizes, as well as increasing the dwelling units from 539 to 565. 2 parks will be created, and then there's also 15 paseo lots.
I'm sorry, Mel, what is the paseo lot?
I believe it's like your walkway lots, landscaping lots, as an amenity to the project.
Okay, thank you.
Accompanying these amendments would require an amendment to the standards for the standards for the homes and the residences. So that will be going through the GDP amendment, which I will cover in a few minutes here, as well as a reduction of the length of the Western Boulevard, one of the main roads serving the site, to be constructed in Phase 1, which I'll have a slide that shows that as well. Entitlements, as discussed earlier, would be amendments to the development agreement, the vesting tentative map, and an adopted general development plan for Village 7. As discussed a few minutes ago, there was an addendum that was prepared for the project to the certified environmental impact report for the Village 7 specific plan. Aerial photo of the site. Village 7 is bound in yellow area. Village, Lewis Communities owns the green area, outlining green. And the project itself that's subject to modification for this entitlement is in red. Ferrari Ranch Road is right there. Moore Road is right, it goes around, kind of meanders around along the northeastern side of the Lewis Communities properties, and then it heads back into Highway 65, which is right there. Again, existing development on the eastern side, undeveloped properties on the western side. So that's kind of a general snapshot of what we have in terms of the project and surrounding uses. For comparison, these are the two maps. As you can tell, the left map is an approved tentative map with 539 residential lots. And the right-hand side map is the proposed tentative map. There's densities that you can tell that there's modifications to the lot sizes, and that's requested as part of the project to amend the lot sizes and configuration. But overall, pattern and the area of the project remains the same. Accesses remains the same for the most part. It retains a big park in the middle. So that's kind of the comparison of those two maps. Not much of a change from one to the other, but enough of change that it requires this entitlement to be submitted for. In accommodation with those change, of course, we have some the minor changes in terms of area are according to the land uses are here. So slight change on the VLDR designation from almost 24 acres to about 25 acres. And you have the VMDR, about 3 acres in size. The VPR, which is, I think it's park, I forget the actual designation, but that one's a wash. It's still 7.4 acres. And a slight change to the VOS and MP designation. So overall, about net 5 acres in size. Again, all within, within the planned area and within the Lewis Communities holdings. Accommodating the map change, of course, going from 539 to 565. This table shows the before and after. The blue column essentially describes what it is now with regards to the phases and the number of units, the lot sizes, and comparably how that coincides with the proposed changes. And now it's in villages, the way it's designated for the proposed map. So there are some variations with regards to the lot sizes. As you can tell, the depths went down a little bit. That's why a bit more of a dense from 539 to 565 units wise. To accommodate the changes of those lot standards, lot configurations, the request includes a GDP amendment to address modified setbacks and lot widths, and those are all memorialized as part of your documentation. For a aerial photo of actually a simple land plan shown here. The two phases within the phase 1 development, of course in pink and then in blue. The circulation remains the same. This is the Central Boulevard. Ferrari Ranch Road is along here. And the part that circulation-wise, road-wise, that will be amended and reduced in length is the green area, which is right there bordering the western side of phase 1. One of the items discussed at the Plan Commission was a minor modification to the internal roads in the subdivision. The left panel here is the approved cross section for the internal street design, and the right panel is proposed. So J1 is approved and J2 is proposed. One difference between those two is that the landscape strip is basically it became part of the sidewalk. It got reduced and now it's an attached sidewalk with any trees that's proposed along that corridor, that street will be part of the lots. It's a minor change in terms of going through the process, and there's no effects that would result into fatal flaws in terms of the design. It does simplify the maintenance of landscaping and minimizes city's stormwater obligations. This also minimizes any future residents' landscape maintenance obligations financially through the CFD. So this design is was considered by the Plan Commission to memorialize that better in a streamlined effort. We added that as a condition of approval. And that's part of the packet is number 6 in your condition of approval. Again, similarly, this being part of the adopted Village 7 specific plan, it is consistent with the general plan. And therefore, and an addendum was prepared for to address the CEQA environmental review of the project. Rainy Planning prepared the environmental impact report, the addendum. It is part of the documentation proposed, and the changes itself does not result in any new significant information, no new environmental impacts. There's no new mitigation measures. There's no increase in severity of the previously identified impacts. As such, the certified EAR as it stands is relevant and is applicable for this project. As with any other projects, to ensure orderly development of the project, we apply conditions of approval. There's 112 of them, including from the 2016 map, plus 18 more for this particular proposed project. And as summarized in the documents, City Council is the following recommendations are being forwarded to your council to adopt a resolution approving the proposed addendum to be adequate for this project. Adopt an ordinance thereby amending the general development plan for Toll Bridge's specific plan for this project. Adopt an ordinance thereby amending the development agreement for this project, as well as adopt a resolution approving phase 1 best tentative map with the added condition of approval, as I mentioned in the previous slide, which is condition number 6. The applicants are here. If you have any questions for them and any questions for staff, I'd be more than willing to answer them.
Do you have a question, Dan?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Will there be an attendant reduction in density in phase 2 or phase 3 of the project? Is that an amendment to the general plan?
Probably better question for the applicant. I don't think, I don't know the answer.
Well, but don't they have to stay within the general plan total number?
They are.
So.
The answer is no, and yes, they are staying with it.
Right,
Yep.
okay. That's what I was checking. I was assuming that they had to.
Questions on this side?
I don't have any questions. Mr. Rodriguez did a really good job of making sure that they've all already been answered.
I only have one question, and it's probably really simple and stupid. My only question is the change in density. Is that just simply an economic change because of the cost of things and just to make more money on the development, just to put more houses in there? Or was there another reason driving that change? Is it just simply an economic thing? Come on up, Phil. You're all dressed up nice for us. You can come speak. Thanks, Mel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Phil Rodriguez with Lewis Plan Communities. Answer to your question is no. Originally, it was to create more diversity of lot sizes and types
Okay.
to respond to market demand. We meet regularly with our builders that tell us what their customers are looking for. And what you may have seen in the slide is that we had well in excess of 100 plus of a particular lot size. The builder's appetite these days is between 65 and 90 lots at a time. So what we did is we just create smaller neighborhoods in scale, created more diversity, and we weren't looking to gain more units, but we ended up with more units.
Okay. Okay. My question wasn't meant to be like, oh, you're just out for more money. I was wondering if there was another.
The more residential units oftentimes help pay for the infrastructure, the massive amounts
Right.
of infrastructure we have to pay, reduces the cost of the
Right.
homes. So
Right.
it spreads the love around.
Right. And that makes perfect sense. I just was wondering if there was another reason which you explained. So thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. Any other questions right now or comments from the council? Okay. Again, this is a public hearing, so I will open the public hearing. Ms. Scanlon, do we have anybody on Zoom who would like to make a comment?
We do have a few folks left. I don't see any hands raised, Mayor.
Okay. Anybody in the council chambers? Anybody who's left? Seeing none. Okay. I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the council. And I don't have any more questions. I'm fully briefed and ready to vote for this. So we'll do them one at a time again. So fire away, anybody.
Motion to, where do I start on here?
Adopt resolution.
To adopt resolution 2022-188 to adopt the proposed. She read these already when we started. So can I just do the number then since we've done it? All right. So motion to adopt resolution 2022-188.
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Silhai,
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlskin,
Yes, it's
and
deja vu. I've done this 4 times on this. same
and Mayor Andriotta.
Yes.
Motion to, where am I? Waive full reading and introduced by title only ordinance 1051B.
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Silhai,
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlskin,
Yes,
Mayor Andriotta.
Yes.
Thank you.
And motion to waive full reading and introduced by title only ordinance 1052B.
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Silhai,
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlskin,
yes,
and Mayor Andriotta.
Yes.
And finally, motion to adopt resolution 2022-189.
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Silhai,
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlskin,
yes.
and Mayor Andriotta.
Yes. Congratulations. Welcome. Okay, thank you, everybody. Okay, item 10A, general business, adopt resolution 2022-190, approving the memorandum of understanding between the city of Lincoln and the Lincoln Professional Firefighters Association. And Veronica Rodriguez will give us the staff report on that.
I don't think you're unmuted, Veronica.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yes,
There you
thank
go.
you.
Thank you. The most recent memorandum of understanding, also referred to as an MOU for the Lincoln Professional Firefighters Association, hereinafter referred to as the LPFA, expired on March 31st of 2020 after a 1-year term. Due to the financial uncertainty caused by the pandemic, the city and the LPFA agreed to extend the MOU from April 1, 2020 through March 31st, 2021. Over a course of 16 months, the city and the LPFA have worked diligently to negotiate the terms of a successor MOU. On July 26, 2022, the city and the LPFA reached a tentative agreement for a 5-year successor MOU. Staff is now requesting the council's approval of a resolution for the approval of an MOU with the LPFA, along with the related salary schedules and the associated budget augmentation that's necessary for the implementation. There are 6 significant elements to the proposed MOU as follows. The first relates to base wage increases. And in an effort to align the salaries of the positions covered by this agreement with the market salary rate, the MOU includes 5 annual base wage increases, with the first being applied retroactively to April 1, 2021. And the last being effective April 1, 2025, for a total of 18%. The second element is an increase to the staff's uniform allowance from $900 to $1,200 a year. Next, we have longevity pay to recognize the dedication of those LPFA employees who remain employed by the city, beginning with the 10th year of service through the 15th year. Staff will be eligible to receive longevity pay of up to 6% of their base monthly salary. The fourth element is the elimination of the 2.1 overtime rate. The 2.1 premium overtime rate that's in the most recent MOU, it's triggered by various circumstances that no longer exist. It will be eliminated along with all addendums and side letters associated with it. And the last element of this MOU is an increase of the sick leave accruals for employees in this MOU from 11.2 hours to 12.1 hours per month. The estimated fiscal impact of this MOU is approximately $2,656,596 over the term of the 5-year contract. The retroactive pay included in this agreement will be funded from the standard allowance revenues claimed by the city under the American Rescue Plan Act. The cost to cover the salary increases for the remainder of the 22-23 fiscal year is approximately $309,373. A budget augmentation in the amount of $209,557 will be necessary to cover the fiscal year 22-23 Fund 100 costs. That concludes my report. I'm open for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Veronica. Appreciate that very much and appreciate all your hard work on this for the last year and a half, however long it's been. It's amazing. We really, really appreciate it.
I think it's important also to recognize that our current city manager had a lot to do with the resolution of this MOU, and I'm very appreciative of his assistance with that.
Well, we would agree. So thank you for that.
I love watching him squirm.
I know
Thank
he
you for
hates
that.
that. The minute you start talking, his face got red. Okay, questions, comments from the council?
I'll just go ahead and join on the bandwagon. I feel like it's been a long time coming, making sure that we're getting right with our firefighters, and the actions we've been able to take over the last few months with them excite me. And so thank you for all of your hard work on the back end on a lot of that. And Sean, too.
I think we're all very pleased to be here.
Yeah. And kudos to them for hanging on.
Thank them. Yep. Anybody else?
No.
Okay. Any public comment on this item? Gwen, anybody on Zoom?
No hands, Mayor.
Anybody in the council chambers? Okay, all right, let's do this thing.
I'll make the motion. Good
Okay.
night. Motion to adopt resolution 2022-190 approving the memorandum of understanding between the city of Lincoln and the Lincoln Professional Firefighters Association.
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Joyner,
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlskent,
Yes.
Councilmember Silhai,
Yes.
and Mayor Andriotta.
Yes. All right, thank you again. Hallelujah. Okay, item 10B, adopt resolution 2022-191, authorizing the city manager to execute an airport lease with Adventure Flight. And our city manager is going to give us this report.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So one of the things that the council asked when I first came on board was to spend some time addressing the airport operationally as well as from a business perspective. And one of the things that I learned very early on was that there was a lot of interest in leasing at the airport and generation of business activity there. And so this is sort of our first step into that. Andy Bibber, who's here this evening, is the, I guess we would call him the president or owner of Adventure Flight LLC. And he has operated business out at our airport for the past 6.5 years. The business is a scenic flight operation as well as flight school that specializes in warbird flight training. Since that time, he has worked to expand his business into more normal flight and tailwheel training. I don't know what either of those things mean, but I'm sure he can explain it. And even more recently, they have begun the process, very exciting process of obtaining their FAA approval for on-demand charter certificates, which would allow them to do regular, the business to run regular charter flights out of our airport. With approval of that charter certificate and hopefully with the approval of this lease, Andy's goal is to expand and add additional aircraft. And so a few months ago, we had a discussion about the concept of a ground lease. He had been subleasing from another private hangar at the airport. And as I kind of got my arms wrapped around the airport, understanding the dynamics, that negotiation lagged on for a couple of months, and I'll take full responsibility for that. More recently, he let us know that the hangar that he's part of currently is being sold to another party, and so his sublease is not getting renewed. And so we were very concerned that there was the potential that we might lose an important business at the airport. So we have accelerated those negotiations. He's been very easy to work with. He would like to create he essentially wants to lease a 200 by 200 section of some of the raw land on Flightline Drive. And I'll show you here just in a moment generally where that is. But the idea is to build a large hangar for his aviation businesses. And he also has an idea that he'd like to have a restaurant on the second floor, or a restaurant on the main floor and a tap house or tasting lounge on the second floor. He's still kind of working through that. But the idea that would be that it would have views of the airport while you're there. He has a rough elevation and site plan that he's put together, but he's going to be working with professional design folks as he moves forward with his build. So here are the components of I want to tell a quick story and then I'll bring it back very quickly. But one of the complications of negotiating this lease is the city has never really done an ongoing market analysis of ground lease space. Some years ago, the finance department did a precursory look at lease rates for actual hangars that are city owned, which is very different from ground lease because think about it, a ground lease is interesting in that really what he's paying for is the rights to use the dirt and then spend his own money to build a very expensive building. And so there's a few things that go into that. One is a very lengthy term, because if he's going to finance that type of construction, they'll want to know that he has rights to the property over a long period of time. And the other is a reasonable rate, because if you obviously wouldn't charge something that's akin to a hangar's lease, because it wouldn't financially make sense for him to not only pay the loan on building the structure, but also very expensive rent. So what Public Works staff did was they put together this essentially the average on the higher end of what current ground leases along Flightline are paying now. And that number is about 3.5 cents a square foot. As I was putting together this report, it occurred to me as I read through the old kind of fee update study that we did internally, that ground leases were never addressed. And so I became concerned, given that this is potentially a 30-year lease, that we may not even be close to kind of area market rates, and want to make sure that we address that. So literally the night before the staff report was due, I was here late and I called Andy, and he was flying, and so he couldn't answer, but he landed somewhere and called me. And I asked him if, in order to solve that problem, because in the meantime, I had contacted a couple of other airports, and one of them had given me a study they did late last year. And what that study shows generally is that we are on the lower end at 3.5 cents a square foot. Auburn, this is late 21 numbers, was at nearly 40 cents. Columbia's at 46. Jackson's at, 4.6. Jackson's at 7 cents. Marysville's at 5 cents. And I think we just called Yuba the other day and they're at 5 cents. So we're not way out of whack, but we're certainly not in the middle either. And so what I proposed to him so that we could keep the lease moving forward, he indicated he was supportive of, is a provision that allows within the first 4 years of this lease for the city to complete a regional market analysis, whether that be internally or if we hire somebody to do that, either one would be fine. And that the lease contemplates that he would agree preemptively to the change. So like, for example, if the council determines that the range is between 4 and 8 cents and you'd like to set it at 5.5, let's say, it would apply to his project. And because both of us didn't think that it was fair to leave the exposure open-ended, it wouldn't make sense for it to go up to 10 or 12 cents, for example. The language that I put into the lease basically says that in no circumstances shall the increase to the current lease rate increase by more than 50% of what he currently has agreed to at 3.5. And that puts it about 5.2-ish cents. Okay, so that's the long story of trying to figure out how to rehabilitate our stale lease rates. But I do think that it's important to mention, just because as you look at each one of these ground leases, and there will be more now that we've started, I think it's important to identify the nature of the business that you're bringing in. For example, to me, there's a difference between bringing in a commercial business like Andy runs, and also options for a restaurant and other things, versus somebody that's simply going to build a hangar and sublease that space out. It's a very different kind of economic impact to the airport, in my opinion. And so it should be reviewed slightly differently. The terms for the lease as are in front of you today, 30 years. There's an option to extend for 15 years after that term is over upon mutual agreement of both parties. This is very standard for all the other leases along Flightline, which, by the way, are almost all of them are from 1978 and are coming up for renewal in 2025. The lease rate is at 3.5 cents a square foot and that rent is roughly $1,400 a month. And that will adjust when we do the analysis, as I discussed. In the beginning, we stepped down the rent at only 25% of the agreed amount because he's going to have to go through a variety of work to have his project engineered and permits and all of that work. And so we contemplated essentially a 2-year period on the heavy end, depending on how long it takes him to get the building up. But it is a metal structure, so it's not quite the same as constructing a commercial building elsewhere. If the construction has completed before the 24-month period, the full rate shall begin at the very next billing cycle. We have added language allowing a restaurant and associated license fee that we will negotiate at that time. The license fee component is specifically related to, we don't have any restaurants at the airport, and so in a sense they would have a monopoly on that area for the time being, and so a license fee is appropriate. We also have built-in cost of living increases to begin January 1st of 2025, and it will be capped at no more than 4.8% and never less than 0%. It'll hopefully keep this updated lease rate competitive with the market moving forward. We've also added language, which is in many of the newer leases, for a common area maintenance fee, better known as a CAM charge, which is something that can be charged to tenants to cover routine costs of maintenance or improved maintenance out at the airport. And finally, the section I discussed with regard to the market analysis within the next 4-year period. I don't think it's going to take a 4-year period. I just put that in there because things happen. So that's really the general details of the lease. I mentioned in the very end of the report that ultimately the value of a ground lease is not really related to the revenue you receive from the ground lease. In this case, even at just 3.5 cents, we're only talking $16,000 a year. It's not going to change the nature of the airport budget, but what will change the nature of the airport budget is an increased and improved and expanded business that's buying more fuel, that's bringing more people in, that's driving more commerce there. And that's where we really need to focus, our business model at the airport is away from having competitive and fair lease rates, but focusing it on trying to target businesses that are going to bring in more commerce to that location. So that's my presentation. I'm happy. Jen preloaded a couple little slides for you. You pull those up just so you can kind of see the general location. It's located along Flightline, a couple hundred feet up from where our FBO offices, right kind of when you come in the gate. And Andy put together kind of a sketch, which we'll show you here, of kind of what he's looking for. And obviously he'll go through a separate design process. This lease this is very basic.
Sketch, all right.
If you go down, you could kind of see the idea of cafe and lounge, and you don't need something super duper, from an architect. You can get an idea about it. It's a hanger after all. Yeah, I don't think it was on a napkin, Andy, but it was definitely on some scrap paper. Yeah.
Now, you know what does have to happen? This needs to be framed and hanging on the wall when
Yeah.
you open.
Yeah. So the other one, Andy actually went out and got a surveyor, so we do have the legal boundaries of where we're talking here, but you could see if you scroll down a little more, Jen. Yep, there you go. The shaded area there is the 200 by 200 footprint that he's looking at. So so staff is in support of this. We're really excited. This is the first new lease, to my knowledge. I tracked back, I think it was 1992 was the last time a ground lease was done. And before that, 1978. So it's 30 or 40 years, depending on where you're at. And Andy, I asked Andy when he came in if he'd like to make a speech, and he said, absolutely not. He likes to fly instead. So, but you can ask him questions. He's here tonight.
Great. All right, questions, comments?
Comment, incredibly excited to see this coming forward. Grateful that Sean is here to drive this forward. We have not always had partners who understand the value of the airport on staff. We do now, and thanks for sticking with us and being willing to invest into the airport. Thank you for going first.
And been waiting a long time.
Yep.
Yeah.
I just have a few questions. So the 50%, that brings us where? Mid zone, mid rate?
So for Andy, and this would be Andy's deal, just because Andy happens to be first, it would bring him up to about 5.2 cents roughly. However, when we do the market analysis, it may be that council chooses 6. That won't contractually apply to Andy.
That was my
but could
question.
to
So
future.
when we look at it, it's this particular agreement, and then anyone who follows for whatever we have. And you also mentioned that we get to look at it differently, which I agree, by the way, because of the benefit that could be coming back to the city and the type of development and project that he envisions out there. When others come forward, do we get to make similar considerations for them? Or is this just a like, congratulations, you went first and took more risks, so?
No,
Yay.
Here's the interesting thing about the airport and the Muni code. When I looked up who approved leases, it says nothing.
Interesting.
Doesn't say you, doesn't say me, doesn't say anybody on staff. It doesn't even really speak to it.
That feels like a problem.
Yeah, it probably needs to be cleaned up, but like in the interim, I do think that it provides like a level of flexibility for a city council to be a little bit selective about how you decide to. I mean, it is a finite resource, right? You will run out of ground, especially flight line ground sooner or
Yep.
later. And so in my opinion, in this particular instance, it was a no brainer because it's a business that's existed out there, well-liked. We've never really had any issues. And so we want to do everything we could do to keep them.
I agree with that on this one, but I'm saying moving forward, would we be having the same discussion?
Yeah, I mean, there's two.
Could we, I guess, not will be, could we
You could-
legally be having the same discussion?
You could do it one of two ways. We could catch as catch can, especially with folks that are still out there and already interested in leasing some land, or alternatively, you could RFP the remaining locations and see what you get out there. I mean,
Okay.
I could tell you by people that already have a presence at the airport that are either leasing or own a hangar, there's already plenty of ideas. But yes, the answer to your
you.
question, yes.
Those were the ones I had.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Kind of following along what Councilmember Sillai mentioned. Most of this lease terms and conditions are standard terms and conditions. And there's a couple, 3 paragraphs that really aren't. And those have to do with startup in the case. And they're tailored, and I expect that to be done in the future. However, you said that the cost of living increase, which will be the automatic, up to 4.8%, no more than 4.7. You said no more than 4%. If it was no, you said something verbally that doesn't match the paragraph. The paragraph just says that the rate increase because of the cost of living will not exceed 4.8%. Reasonable. But then you said something verbally. That was just no, that's the next thing that is ambiguous. 2 different. So I just want to make sure that you were just
Yeah, let me, I'm.
paragraph
C, right?
C.
Yeah. Is this your gotcha question for the evening? Just kidding. So, okay, here's how it reads. So that it is very possible that my staff report language was inconsistent. Beginning on January 1st of 2025 and every 2 years thereafter on January 1st, for the term of this lease, the rent shall be increased but not decreased for the succeeding 2-year period by the percentage identified in the CPI for all Western urban area, Bureau, et cetera, published for the month of July immediately preceding that date. However, in no event shall the increase in rent exceed 4.8%. The city must notify the tenant of increased rent no later and so on.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what you expect.
Correct.
What you wrote.
Yep.
Okay. I'm okay with that. It was just something was said about a minimum of 4%. It wasn't in.
Yeah.
There wasn't in the statement.
That's probably I was probably mumble mouth, but yeah, it cannot decrease below 0 and it cannot go over 4.8.
Okay. The next one is a market rate study. And that 50%, either I'm really dumb or it's really ambiguous. It says that the updated rate shall be no more than 50% of the current lease rate paid. So you're dropping the rates by 50%, which is what it says.
No, it says the adjustment shall not be implemented until after the permanent hangar is built and shall in no circumstances increase the current lease rate by more than 50%.
That protects Andy.
That
Don't
is,
come back
okay,
and
I know.
jack it up.
What did you want, really?
That. Yeah, I mean, the idea. The
What
idea
is that?
Well, so the idea is, and if we probably could get maybe a little bit of, in fact, I included into your resolution, which I'm doing standard now. I don't know if anyone's read it, is minor modifications made by the city attorney are also approved. But the idea is that if Andy is signing a lease with us tomorrow morning for 30 years at 3.5 cents a square foot, and we decide in a year or 2 to do our market rate analysis, and the council said, all right, you know what, we're at 6.5. That's where we think the sweet spot is. Andy's rate that he will pay over the term will only increase by 50% over what his current amount paid is.
So it's a 150% of the current rate.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, you're correct. Yes.
Okay. Because I said, other than that, it's a good lease. Much better from both parties' standpoint than the leases that we've had previously.
One other component about that that's super important is almost all of your 1978, 79 leases are coming up for expiration in 2025. So we have to do that study prior to that.
Bill, did you have a question or comment?
No, I just want to thank Sean and Christine, for trying to bring the our airport up to a professional level.
A lot of ways.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anybody who would like to make a public comment on this item?
Mayor, we did have a hand raised. Whitney, I'm not sure if you wanted to speak.
So hold on one second. We're going to let Richard, he's at the.
Okay.
We'll let him and then we'll go to Whitney. Yeah, hold on one second, Whitney. Go ahead, Richard.
Thank you, Richard Pearl, Lincoln over here. I'm going to certainly recommend that you pass this lease option over here. It's been sorely needed out at the airport for so long. We've had no new hangars out there forever. These are major improvements over here. And one of the things I think is really important is that this is a win-win negotiation, but I think it really shows creative negotiations on the part of the city administration and Andy, both being flexible, both looking towards, the future and how we can grow this airport. Because I think we're getting ready to turn this puppy around. And so I think this is the first step. There's a number of other proposals for coming up for hangars out there that I think are going to continue moving this forward. So I think this is a very good thing, and hopefully it will be overwhelmingly passed. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Whitney, go ahead, please.
Whitney, you can unmute yourself.
Madam Mayor, Council, my questions were answered with your questions. And just to build on what Richard said, I think that this is an awesome, exciting opportunity. And I don't know anybody that wouldn't be excited to go out to the airport and have a place to dine and watch the airplanes come and go. So I am all for it. Oh, my only question was, is there any information on what type of restaurant is being proposed?
Snackhorn.
Andy, would you like to answer that question? That's still up in the air.
Up in the air. Funny.
Yeah, no pun intended.
But I'm pumped.
Are there any other comments on Zoom?
Took you a while, Dan.
Sorry, no other hands are raised, Mayor.
Okay, thanks, Ben. Okay. Any other comments in the council chambers? No, okay. Yeah, this is really, really exciting because I know that all of us have been really pushing for movement at the airport for a really long time, especially Councilmember Joyner, but he and I share the same passion for that. And I know the rest of the council members do too. And love Andy. Andy gave my husband a ride in one of his older planes, and that was like the thrill of his life. And so just really supportive of what you're doing, and others out there that want to expand and do the same thing. I'm just so excited that we're finally at the place where we can create what we want out there, right? That the airport is going to be the asset and the gem that we all know that it can be. And so I'm just very grateful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And congratulations. I'm sure we're gonna pass you here in just a second. So, but I'm just really thrilled. I mean, growing up, when I was younger, lived on Nicholas Road and lived near the airport. And, the reality that it hasn't changed in all these years, it's like, it's time to do something. So I'm really excited. So I'm definitely going to support this. And if there's no other questions or comments from the council, I am ready to entertain a motion, and let's get this done also.
I would be very excited to offer a motion to adopt resolution 2022-190, approving the MOU between the city of Lincoln. Oh, I did it again, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
Need to cross those off.
Well, you know what? That one was exciting too. So let's doubly
Yes,
approve that.
yes.
But adopt resolution 2022-191, authorizing the city manager to execute an airport lease with Adventure Flight.
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Joyner,
Yes.
Councilmember Silhai,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlskin,
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen,
Yes.
and Mayor Andriotta.
Yes, congratulations. Very excited. So now the hitch is you have to invite us to your ribbon cutting, okay? When it's all done. That's great. All right, thank you. Okay, That brings us to item number 11, council initiated business.
I do
Anybody
not have anything.
business? Hey, are you thinking?
I'm thinking what's worth spending your time on. We've already discussed bringing back the item on the sewer and JPA and all of that. So that's already on our agenda. I think I'm good.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Was there
No,
one other?
go ahead.
The homelessness, did we want to?
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's where I was going to take it, but no, it probably isn't. It probably isn't. So thank you for that, Sean. So we had our second in-person meeting. Again, I think the conversation overall went well, but the direction began to solidify and it seemed to be away from a centralized campus such as the Campus of Hope to a more, and I'm getting my words wrong tonight, diffused, decentralized concept. Each jurisdiction seemed to want to address their own problem, their own issues, and have control of that. And so then, I guess the reason I'm bringing it up is it would be useful for us to have some direction on where we want to head with this. Obviously, the county has the funding to address these issues. Funding is not given to us, but let's talk about what it is, what position you want us to take as we return to these conversations. And it begins to drill down on a decentralized solution. So I'd like to, with your agreement, agendize perhaps a workshop to just have that discussion.
I would love that. And apologies for missing the last two for work obligations.
Yes, we have.
All
Thank you,
right,
Sean.
so item number 12, information items. Any information items tonight? No? I wanted to thank staff. I meant to welcome you at the beginning of the meeting, but we came in late because we were in closed session. So welcome to the meeting. Thanks for being here and thanks for staying
Thanks for staying.
and being available. We really appreciate everything you do.
You got information because you're going on that overnight with PCWA thing.
I'll report on it when I get back. Yeah.
Let's see, because that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Okay, all right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
And returning to closed session, I guess.